Hello friends! Today we're going to watercolor paint a landscape, and I'm just going to show you some of my tools that I take with me here and there when I want to paint on the go. And it's kind of nice just to have a quick little setup like this. So I've got my watercolor pad, and this leather pouch I got from Michael's. So I have my Winsor and Newton travel set of watercolor paints, and inside this bag I've also got a handcrafted painting bowl that was made at a ceramic place. I took my daughter and we made one of these, and I've got a pencil for sketching. I have a nice regular size paintbrush and a couple of zero size paintbrushes, and I'm using just these today. And I'm just going to show you, I have another like sparkly, metallic-y, glittery little paint set for anytime I want to add some glitter. And I have some pre-cut paper, which is nice to have handy. And I'm going to show you how to paint a landscape. All right, so I've gone ahead and added water to all of the paints that I'm going to be using today to get them ready. And I'm using my yellow ochre to begin with, and I'm going to be painting just a couple of little mountains. So I'm filling in my mountain, and I will leave the bottom white just so that when I paint my trees, they have a nice brilliant green. It's not muddied at all by the background color. And I'm going to have a little lake in the middle, so I'm kind of keeping some room for that. I went ahead and I used my Prussian blue, which is my blue on the very top corner on the right, and I filled in for the sky just kind of with lots of water and lots of blue. And now I'm making sure I've got my zero brush loaded with my sort of dark brown color. And I'm going to make tree trunks, and I'm going to go ahead and make a few of them on either side of my lake. And after I've made a few tree trunks here and there, different sizes, different lengths, I'm going to go ahead and find my green, and I have two greens. I have kind of a sort of a more natural looking green and a really bright green. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I've mixed the two. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of my reddish brown into that to kind of muddy it up a little bit too. I'm going to use this color now to darken in the hills. And the nice thing about watercolors is you layer your color, and if it's not to your liking, if it's not dark enough, you can always go back over it, which I'm going to end up doing. And I made the mistake of not letting my blue dry enough, so I've got a little bit of color kind of bleeding into my blue, which I'm going to show you how to fix. So I'm just layering that sort of greenish brown, kind of muddy looking green color, and it's not dark enough, so I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more and darken it up a little bit more. And now you can see kind of at the top where the green has leaked a little bit into the blue. And the best way to fix anything like that is to rinse your brush really well and dry it really well, and go back and kind of collect the color, almost like you're erasing it away with your brush. And you're just kind of picking up the color wherever it bled. And it only works if your brush is really clean and really dry. So I'm just kind of fixing a few of those little areas where the color leaked. And now I am really excited because now I get to paint my trees with my 0 brush, which is a perfect brush for this kind of thing because it allows you to be a little more detailed in what you're doing. And my tree trunks are not completely dry, which actually adds a nice effect. So I'm going to go in now and paint all of my little trees by going down one side with little diagonal strokes and matching that going down the other side. It's really easy, really quick, and a really nice way to paint trees. Voila, a whole forest. How did that happen so magically? Now I am going to load my brush, with some more yellow ochre, and now I'm going to go back in and kind of paint a little more of the ground around my trees and fill in so there's a nice contrast between the green color of the tree and that yellow ochre, sort of like a summer meadow, not quite fall yet. It's very dry. It's somewhere near Tuolumne, up by Yosemite, maybe one of those meadows. And this time of year, if you go to California, up in the northern hills, up by Tuolumne, even in Marin, everything is nice and yellow. The grasses have turned yellow, and it's actually really beautiful. It's very calming to me every time I go up there late summer and drive around up in Marin or even in Paso Robles. Paso Robles is really well known for its hills that are covered in this yellowy grass. So I'm just kind of thinking of that now when I'm coloring this in, that yellowy color of the meadows. And I'm going back in with a little more of a kind of a darker ochre with a little bit of my brown, and just kind of darkening in here and there, giving the trees a little bit of a shadow underneath them. Coloring in my edges. You don't want to forget about your edges. Make sure that, even up at the top where I did my blue sky, I made sure to get all of the edges and not leave any white. And I'm just kind of filling in here and there and realizing that now is time to darken in my hills even more. They're not nearly as dark as I wanted them to be, so I'm going back in with my green and okay, so now I'm going to go in with my 0 brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of my red and mix it with orange, and I'm going to go through the back of my meadow. So in the hills, there's all kinds of trees in the distance, and I'm going to paint a few little, just kind of short lines on top of my hills and behind my lake to give the impression that somewhere in the distance that there's a forest far away. And I'm going to do the same around the lake on either side, just kind of painting in a little bit of an impression of some plants maybe, or some high grasses. Sometimes in California, when the lakes dry, there's this interesting reddish looking grass that gets left behind. It's actually very beautiful. In Lake Cuyamaca in Southern California, there's just such a lake that when it dries up, it leaves behind this really bright reddish kind of a grass. So, and over here now I'm just kind of filling in a little bit more, some darker brown and red combined, just to give the trees a little more of a shadow. Alright, so for some fun, I've got my white gel pen, and I'm just adding a little bit of some speckles here and there to my meadow, just to give it a little bit of magic, some fairy wonder, a little bit of joy. It makes me happy to do this. Hopefully after you've painted and your painting is dry, you also add a few speckles here and there. And I'm going to go up now into my sky and draw a few little clouds, just some little tiny puffy clouds with a flat bottom. And I'm just using my gel pen to draw some lines and fill in a little bit here and there. Nothing fancy, just the impression of a cloud. And the nice thing about a watercolor landscape is that it really is just about giving the person that's viewing it an impression of a memory of a place they've been before. And for me, this whole painting is a combination of places that I visited. As I was mentioning, you know, it could be up in Tuolumne in Yosemite, it could be maybe in Paso Robles, it could be here in San Diego at Lake Cuyamaca. I mean, it could be anywhere, but all of those colors and, you know, the hills, the trees, the lake, the sky, all of that, it's a combination of memories. And that's what makes a painting like this so lovely and so touching. So I'm just going in with a little bit of my Prussian blue at the base of the clouds to add a little more magic to them, darkening them in. And now I have my metallic gold jelly pen, and I'm just gonna give a few little more speckles here and there, just for a little more fairy magic, which I believe in. And there you have it, your watercolor landscape. And I do hope that you try this at home with whatever watercolors you have. You really just need yellow ochre and green, a burnt sienna and Prussian blue. You know, the gel pens are good to have as well, but not necessary. And a couple of nice paintbrushes, and you can make magic happen.